Ripped, peeled, diced, shredded, grainy, high-def bodybuilding has many words for the extra lean. They all basically add up to holy smokes. And here we're celebrating 10 competitors who repeatedly displayed expletive-worthy physiques and are considered the most conditioned. Number 10, Shawn Ray. Shawn Ray was never going to be the most prominent man on a pro stage at 5'5" and around 200 pounds. Instead, he focused on shape, posing, and, shocker, being as ripped as possible. Ray's penchant for getting cut is why he was in the top 6 at the Mr. Olympia every year over a decade. Ray would train individual body parts with the intention of making the entire physique look better. It was hard to decipher which of Ray's body parts were his best as he flowed through his posing routine. As Ray hit his most muscular pose, his abs and chest appeared striated and intensely rigid. During his back double biceps pose, fans would quickly assume Ray's chiseled back was indeed his winning muscle group. Today, Ray is known for his role in the media and as a promoter of shows, but some of his black and white images are still admired by fans today. Known as Mr. Symmetry, Shawn Ray's body defines balance and proportion and is considered one of the most inspiration physiques of bodybuilding. With his artistic muscular display and impressive proportions, it's surprising that he was never crowned Mr. Olympia, although he has finished in the top 5 on numerous occasions. Number 9, Kevin Levrone. Considered by many as the most underrated bodybuilder of all time, Kevin Levrone consistently impressed fans with his incredible arms and delts, along with a chiseled midsection. Although he's won over 23 pro show titles, he's never garnered the coveted Mr. Olympia title. But the Uncrowned King of Mr. Olympia decided to take another shot at the title in 2016 when he made his comeback at the age of 51. Despite placing 16th, fans and athletes alike agreed he was the true champion of the competition. Number 8, Phil Heath. After discovering bodybuilding in 2002, Phil Heath made his pro debut in 2006. Since then, he secured 7 straight Mr. Olympia title wins from 2011 to 2017, until he was dethroned by Shawn Ray. Nicknamed The Gift, Heath has a near-perfect structure, featuring a tiny waist, huge delts, and chiseled abs. While some dismiss his form as being too narrow, others consider his physique to be one of the best in the world of bodybuilding. After the era of Coleman and Cutler, Phil Heath brought something different to the bodybuilding scene. The Gift wasn't the biggest man on the stage, but he had shape, proportions, and he was more often than not ripped to the bone. When he turned around for any back pose, the upper back and hamstrings were shredded. He also looked very impressive in the side chest pose. Heath was so dominant at the 2013 Mr. Olympia that the judges sent him back in line during prejudging to determine the rest of the top finishers. The look he had that year is considered his best. A hernia cost Heath the 2018 Olympia to the late Shawn Ray, stopping his streak of wins at 7. But his conditioning and well-developed muscle made him the most dominant bodybuilder of the 2010s. Number 7, Dexter Jackson. The Blade Jackson made his presence at the IFBB Pro League known quickly when he was debuted at the 1999 Arnold Classic and placed 7th. Many media members and fans saw Jackson's potential, but no one would have guessed that he would compete until the 2020 Mr. Olympia, making his 22-year pro career span 4 decades. Despite him giving up 20, 30, and sometimes up to 50 pounds in weight to competitors, Jackson beat them with his symmetry and definition. Those assets helped him 29 times as a pro, including dethroning Jay Cutler to win the 2008 Mr. Olympia. He also secured 5 Arnold Classic titles in his career, the most by any men's bodybuilder. Number 6, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He would undoubtedly top the list of the most famous bodybuilders of all time, but in terms of physicality, Schwarzenegger wouldn't be able to compete with today's standards. In fact, most bodybuilders since the early 1990s show better conditioning and mass than Schwarzenegger displayed when competing. That said, the Austrian-born bodybuilder, actor, and politician has had a very impressive record. Schwarzenegger was the youngest Mr. Universe at just 20 years old, and he won countless titles over the years, including a further 4 Mr. Universe titles and 7 Mr. Olympia titles. Number 5, Lee Haney. Lee Haney is the only bodybuilder to ever win Mr. Olympia and never lose his title. Retiring after a record 8 consecutive wins, some say Haney bowed out of bodybuilding as he knew he was about to lose to Dorian Yates. Haney was the first bodybuilder to offer both size and conditioning. With his 250-pound frame, Haney was bigger than all of his competitors, and yet he displayed razor-sharp definition and incredible 8-pack abs every time. Despite his competitive record and his groundbreaking combination of muscularity and mass, Haney rarely gets the recognition he deserves. But many bodybuilders have since tried and failed to come anywhere near his size and definition. Number 4, Dorian Yates. The six-time Mr. Olympia is arguably one of the best bodybuilders of all time for many fans. Beyond his achievements and some of the most granite hard conditioning in bodybuilding, Yates' work ethic makes him an icon for many fans. With a machine-like focus to training, Yates dedicated himself to working out 365 days a year, with intense and brutal routines. And many say it's thanks to this dedication that he was able to compete and win, in a golden era of more genetically blessed competitors such as Ronnie Coleman and Paul Dillette. Number 3. Frank Zane. At the other end of the scale, we have Frank Zane, whose lean yet highly defined 190 frame inspired the bodybuilding term Zane-like, synonymous with leanness. Frank Zane competed in contests from 1961 to 1983, and he was never not ripped enough. Despite being much smaller than the future actor and politician, Zane's dedication to definition helped him defeat Arnold Schwarzenegger at the 1968 Mr. Universe contest. Zane also won 3 Mr. Olympia titles to close out the 1970s, 77 to 79. He had a complete physique, but his six-pack was usually the highlight. His combination of conditioning and posing prowess made him one of the greatest competitors to ever step on a bodybuilding stage. In fact, most gym-goers would choose Zane's body as the kind of body they'd love to show off in a muscle shirt, and with good reason. Zane had such an amazing physique that he was able to beat Arnold Schwarzenegger despite weighing 60 pounds less. Rather than relying on mass, Zane concentrated on defined lines and precise attention to detail with a sculpted body that few are able to pull off. And thanks to his efforts, he won 3 straight Mr. Olympia titles. Number 2. Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman set a new standard of bodybuilding with a contest weight of around 300 pounds, something few bodybuilders achieve. Winning a staggering 26 titles throughout his career, including 8 Mr. Olympias, Coleman is also considered one of the strongest bodybuilders ever, as demonstrated in his grueling training videos. At the beginning of his career, Coleman's physique had it all, including mass and detail, especially on his back. The size of the muscle and symmetry he displayed on his back is still unparalleled today, but Ronnie just misses out on the top spot because of the lack of definition his midsection displayed toward the end of his reign. Number 1. Flex Wheeler. Kenneth Flex Wheeler, also known as the Sultan of Symmetry, racked up an impressive 17 professional titles throughout his career. Yet in one of the biggest snubs of all time, he never managed to take the Mr. Olympia crown, the most coveted title in bodybuilding. But for knowledgeable fans, Flex is the best bodybuilder of all time. He won the Arnold Classic a record 4 times, and in 1997 he achieved the coveted Triple Crown by winning the Ironman, the Arnold Classic, and the San Jose Classic. And top bodybuilders Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ronnie Coleman agree, both describing Wheeler as the greatest ever. In terms of Flex's flawless competing physique, it was everything bodybuilding represents, with a perfect combination of size, muscular definition, proportion, and symmetry. In a lineup of all the pro bodybuilders across the eras, we're confident Flex would take the title of the greatest, most conditioned body. Honorable mention, Jay Cutler. Many people would consider Jay Cutler more of a mass monster than someone known for sporting intense definition, but his 2 greatest outings were events where he looked like he lost a sword fight because of all the cuts on his physique. In the 2001 Mr. Olympia, Cutler was extremely lean and pushed then-champion Ronnie Coleman to the limit. Coleman walked away with the title, but many fans still feel that the Massachusetts native should have won his first Olympia title that night. Cutler's second shredded showing, and probably his most impressive showing altogether, was at the 2009 Olympia. After losing his title to Dexter Jackson the previous year, Cutler took to the stage in prejudging looking full, round, and ripped. He established his dominance in Las Vegas that weekend with a stomp on the floor that became known as the Quad Stomp. To this day, the image of Cutler flexing his quad is one of the most famous photographs in the sport of bodybuilding. That's all for this video, folks. We'll see you another time.